is from competition that is on them on that very business?
It's purely leadership. Purely leadership.
Everything rises and falls.
It's purely leadership. Because we thought 3 years before the project, the Ghana Poultry Project enrolled all of us. They came to our individual farms, had a registry of us. So why didn't they fall on that registry? You know, my farm capacity is about 20,000. So let's say with the grant that's coming, 20,000, we can give you, let's say, $10,000, give you $15,000. They did all these projections. But why did they end with these 2 major farmers?
I'm there. So earlier you were talking about policies. Now, we've talked about the fact that the Ghanaian should not necessarily finish school and be looking for non-existing jobs, and that the Ghanaian ought to be entrepreneurial and all that. So you talk about policies, you talk about funding. What policies do you think ought to be rolled out that will help the Ghanaian youth to become more entrepreneurial and start his or her own business? And when it comes to source of funding, how do we also, work out that bit? Because here, David is saying that, for example, how many millions of dollars? 20?
22 million.
$22 million came in, and they didn't get it. 2 businesses, 2 poultry farmers, they benefited.
Yeah. So, everything is about leadership. So, I think policies should be made for young entrepreneurs or young businesses, something that is just within their scope. I think the challenge that might have caused this is because, the big fishes. You understand? So the young ones do not have that voice to be able to what? Yes. Meet up on shoulder. So if there's a policy that is targeted solely at young entrepreneurs with high value, poultry farm comes with so much value. And we have passionate young people who have decided to take on that space, not because of anything, but because we are hungry. People are hungry in the country, and people don't want to leave. Some people have the opportunity to leave, but they still want to stay in the country and be entrepreneurs. So if there's a policy that is deliberate, targeting these young people, creating the enabling support in terms of even identifying the space they find themselves, and then finding the tailor-made solutions to someone. Why oyster shell? We have people who can create these ones and supply to farmers. I have been in the space and I know they can run out. But I also have a lot of colleagues during my startup stage who were interested in starting oyster shell business, like feed businesses. So what's happening to these people? All it takes for a young entrepreneur to succeed is just the startup.
And is a startup available? What are some of the challenges that one has to go through to be able to get the startup that you're talking about?
So if the government, it goes still back to that. If the government is deliberate about supporting people who have ideas, wonderful ideas, to start something on their own, let's catch them young. Now there are hubs all around in the country that are supporting young people who have ideas, some crazy ideas, beautiful ideas. They just need a bit more of technical knowledge, a bit more of startup grants, and then a bit more of regulatory support. Because if you are starting an oyster shell business and then there are no regulatory reforms to support you, and they will tell you to close.
Yes. Now,
they will come to you.
David, what about policies would you want to see this government roll out that will help businesses, young businesses, growing businesses to be able to do well?
David, these policies, I would say, they are there.
The policies are there.
Trust me, there are lots of policies.
So why are we struggling? What are the challenges?
And I would also want to add to one other thing to it. My sister talked about research and academia being short. No, there are lots of research and academia. They are rather shelved. I personally took it upon myself, did this survey, research that was on manual, this poultry manual. I sent it to Ghana Investment Promotion Council. They took my policy. They didn't even reference me. They didn't give me being the sole brain behind this. They didn't give any recognition. The next thing I saw, it was on GIPC Kantank, one of those TV stations, and they are talking about it freely. This is a policy that would work on poultry manure. Most of these manures, we dispose it at the farms. But we have this particular plant. Yes, the droppings. You have this particular plant, Lucina leucocephala or something. It's a nitrogen fixing plant. Just add it to the manure. You don't need to go and export from Ukraine, Russia. No. So this was said by SIR. Perfectly it worked. Per their research, it was something that we could rely on. During COVID, I realized that they ran back to that thing and they were spreading it to farmers within Western region and some part of Ashanti region. But why? Like, it's not that we don't have the policies. The policies are there, the ideas are there, the research is there, but it's left with leadership. That person to roll it out, that person to engage.
What would it take for us to get that leadership bit work efficiently and effectively?
Yeah, I think we just need that political will first. Because with policies, every government would want to get aligned. But if you are to make it apolitical, something that's devoid of MPP and DC, this is academia, this is what we want to work towards. Let's implement it and see. Let's give it a try. Give the various institutions that mandate to implement it. CSIR here, they were so ready. FORIG was so ready. Because FORIG has these plants in excess in our forest. They have it. Even some are even at our backyard.
The ones that have been documented, like the Council of State elections, that's supposed to be politically partisan.
Exactly.
So how do you expect this, to be apolitical?
So I think it's we getting someone in the private space to take up.
But that's the same thing. The two poultry farmers you talk, that's a private space. Yes. They were given this money to be given to other poultry farmers. Exactly. They did not do what they had to do.
So that's what I'm saying. It all boils down to leadership and that will to see something work. But take it out. I don't think because naturally we are greedy. Naturally we are greedy.
Leo has a question. Leo, what's your question?
So we are talking about the youth, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so far, it has been about policies and government and institutions and all of that. I asked Amdiya a question before we
begin. The three questions.
The three questions. So 3 things. Which is the most difficult? One, securing funding from investors, government policy, or people to work with. Which one has been the most difficult for you? The question goes to the two of you.
I think it's funding.
To you is funding. Amdiya, to you?
For me, I would say the people.
The people to work with.
Attracting and recruiting and attracting the right people. Teamwork makes the dream work. I don't have issue with funding because
fortunately you don't have.
Fortunately, I do have challenges. Of course, I'm not there yet. Of course, I'm not there yet. But I have been able to position myself in a way that has, so I don't see that as a very much of a challenge for me. But what I need now is the right mindset of people to work with.
Yeah, so I mentioned a while ago that we have, as of 2023 alone, we had about 3,688 health workers leaving Ghana.